You've bitten your tongue so many times it's a miracle you can still taste anything. You've sat in meetings where the loudest person in the room was also the most confidently wrong. You've watched people get promoted for ideas you suggested 6 months ago and were ignored for. You've simplified your vocabulary, dumbed down your explanations, and learned to nod along with conclusions that make you want to scream. And the worst part isn't the frustration. The worst part is the loneliness, the suspicion that you're the only one who sees what's actually happening, the exhausting performance of pretending you don't notice what you notice because noticing makes people uncomfortable. You've been told your whole life that intelligence is an advantage. Nobody mentioned it would also be a sentence to permanent alienation from most of the human race. Nietzsche understood this isolation with painful clarity because he lived it. He spent his career writing books that almost no one bought, developing ideas that almost no one understood, and watching mediocrity get celebrated while genuine insight got ignored. But his response wasn't bitterness or withdrawal. It was a complete reframing of what intelligence is actually for. The problem, he realized, isn't that stupid people exist. The problem is that intelligent people misunderstand their own position. They think clarity of perception entitles them to be heard. They think being right should translate into influence. They think the world owes them recognition for seeing what others miss. This expectation is the source of their suffering, not the stupidity surrounding them. The herd doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards conformity. This isn't a flaw in the system, but the system working exactly as designed. Groups survive through cohesion, and cohesion requires similarity. The person who sees further than everyone else is a threat to group stability, whether they intend to be or not. Their very existence implies that the group's current understanding is incomplete. Nobody wants to hear that. So the intelligent person faces a choice that most refuse to acknowledge honestly. You can spend your life trying to drag people toward insights they don't want and will punish you for offering. Or you can accept that most of what you perceive will never be communicated successfully and redirect that energy towards something that doesn't depend on the herd's approval. Nietzsche called this redirection the path of self-overcoming. Instead of measuring yourself against people who can't see what you see, you measure yourself against your own potential. The question stops being, why don't they understand, and becomes, what am I capable of creating? This shift isn't about arrogance or writing people off. It's about recognizing that frustration with others is usually frustration with yourself in disguise. You're angry that they don't get it because you've staked your validation on their getting it. Remove that stake, and the anger dissolves. The idiots remain idiots, but they stop having power over your emotional state. They become weather, something you account for and navigate around, rather than something you take personally. The intelligent person who suffers most is the one who needs acknowledgement from people incapable of giving it. This need is a trap that keeps you perpetually disappointed and bitter. Nietzsche saw this trap destroy potentially great people who couldn't let go of the expectation that the world should recognize their gifts. They wasted their energy performing for an audience that would never appreciate the performance, instead of doing the work that only they could do. The audience's inability to appreciate them wasn't the tragedy. The tragedy was letting that inability determine how they spent their finite lives. Every minute you spend resenting someone's stupidity is a minute you're not spending on whatever you were actually put here to do. There's a practical dimension to this that goes beyond philosophical acceptance. Intelligent people often make a critical tactical error. They assume that being right is sufficient, that correct analysis will naturally persuade. This assumption gets them destroyed in environments where politics matter more than accuracy. Nietzsche observed that the ability to navigate human irrationality is itself a form of intelligence that many conventionally smart people lack entirely. Knowing the right answer means nothing if you can't package it in a way that others can accept without feeling threatened. The genius who can't communicate with normal people isn't actually a genius in any functional sense. They're just someone with a gift they don't know how to use. Dealing with people who think slower than you isn't beneath you. It's a skill that determines whether your intelligence has any impact on the world. Nietzsche didn't withdraw from humanity. He wrote for a future audience he knew wouldn't arrive during his lifetime. He developed ways of expressing dangerous ideas that could slip past the defenses of readers who would reject those same ideas stated directly. He learned to plant seeds rather than demand immediate harvests. This patience wasn't compromise or selling out. It was strategic understanding that some things can only be communicated indirectly over time to people who are ready to receive them. The alternative is shouting truth at people who experience it as assault and then wondering why they don't thank you. The real shift happens when you stop seeing stupidity as something done to you and start seeing it as a landscape you move through. Landscapes aren't fair or unfair. They just have features you have to work with. Getting angry at a mountain for being in your way is absurd, but intelligent people do the equivalent constantly when dealing with human limitations. The mountain doesn't care about your frustration. Neither do the people who can't follow your reasoning. Your frustration is purely self-inflicted and purely optional. Nietzsche described this acceptance as amor fati, the love of fate. Not passive resignation, but active embrace of reality as the raw material for whatever you're going to build. The idiots are part of reality. Wishing they weren't is a waste of your actual gift. What separates the intelligent person who thrives from the intelligent person who burns out bitter and alone isn't IQ or knowledge or perception. It's the ability to stop expecting the world to operate on terms it will never operate on. You were given a different way of processing reality. That's the gift. But thinking the gift entitles you to understanding from people who receive different gifts is where you turn an advantage into a wound. Nietzsche spent his sanity on this problem and left behind a blueprint for anyone willing to read it carefully. The idiots will always be there. The question is whether you'll let them determine your experience of being alive, or whether you'll finally release them from a debt they never agreed to owe.